Ready for your joke of the day? Why did the boy eat his math homework? Because the teacher told him it was a piece of cake. Ha! What do you call an empty parrot cage? A polygon. How can you make time fly? Throw a clock out the window. Look, you got 3 jokes for the price of 1 today. That's good stuff right there. So today in class we worked on adding and subtracting mixed numbers, and this example that's on the screen right now is from the Ultra Workout 2 homework assignment. So we're going to start with this example. We've got 7 3/5 minus 4 3/10, and we talked about 2 different ways that we could go about solving this problem. First of all, you could change everything over to fractions that are equivalent with the same denominator, and let's just see what we get. So I'm going to carry everything down, just because this is the way I prefer to look at it. So my denominators are 10 and 5, and that means that my common denominator is going to be 10. So 4 3/10 gets to stay the same. And then 7 3/5. Oops. That's going to be, there we go, 7 6/10. Now in this case, I could just go ahead and subtract very plainly. So I've got 7 minus 4, and that's going to be 3. 6 minus 3 is 3, and my denominator is going to be 10. So the answer to this problem would be 3 3/10. So this worked out really nicely, and my suggestion is go ahead and find your common denominator first and make equivalent fractions so that you can make sure that the fraction on top is larger than your fraction on the bottom. So let's try another one. Let's try an addition problem. So we have 4 7/8 and 8. We're going to add to that 8 7/12. So my common denominator, if I found the least common multiple of 8 and 12, it would be 24. So 12 times 2 equals 24. 7 times 2 is 14. 8 times 3 is 24. And 7 times 3 is 21. So now I can go ahead and add. 8 and 4 is 12. 21 plus 14 gives me 35 24ths. Now, this answer is not incorrect, but it just doesn't look as nice as I would like it to look. So I'm going to go ahead and take away 24 24ths, and I'm going to carry it over to my wholes. So that's going to give me 13 wholes and 11 24ths left over. So there's my answer, 13 and 11 24ths. Sometimes you're going to run into problems that are a little bit harder, especially if your fractional part of the larger number is smaller than the fractional part of the smaller number. So let's say we have 4 1/10 minus 1 6/8. First off, I'm going to go ahead and find my common denominator so I know what I'm working with. And in this case, my common denominator is going to be 40. Eight times 5 equals 40, so 6 times 5 gives me 30. 10 times 4 gives me 40, so 1 times 4 gives me 4. So you can see the problem here. I've got 4 40ths minus 30 40ths, and that's just not possible. So at this point, I've got a couple of options. The first thing I could do is borrow, and this is probably the easiest thing to do. What I'm going to do is I'm going to borrow a whole from this 4. and I'm going to make it a 3. I'm going to take the whole that I borrowed and I'm going to change it into 40/40ths. So now what I have is 3, and I'm going to take 40/40ths plus 4/40ths to get 3 and 44/40ths. So I just created an equivalent fraction. This is equivalent to 4 and 1/10. All of these are equivalent to each other, so I haven't done anything fancy. And now I can subtract 1 and 30/40ths. So 44 minus 30 gives me 14/40ths. And 3 minus 1 gives me 2. Now, this answer is perfectly fine, but I'm going to go ahead and simplify by dividing by 2. So 14 divided by 2 gives me 7, and 40 divided by 2 gives me 20. So my total answer is 2 and 7/20ths. Now, there's another way to solve this problem also, and that's by changing everything into an improper fraction. So again, I could have 4 1/10 minus 1 6/8. That's supposed to be a 6. And I could change these into equivalent fraction, or I'm sorry, improper fractions. So 10 times 4 would give me 40, plus 1, that's going to give me 41/10. 8 times 1 is 8, plus 6 gives me 14. So that gives me 14/8. Now I need to find a common denominator for 8 and 10. So again, that's going to be 40. 10 times 4 is 40. And then I've got 41 times 4 now. So 10 times 4 is 40. So now I have to do 41 times 4. So you can come off to the side and do the math. And when you do that, you get 164. 8 times 5 equals 40. And then you have 14 times 5. So you could do that off to the side. And when you do so, you get 70. So now you have 164/40ths minus 7/40ths. So you can see where this might be a little bit more challenging because your numbers are so big. So when you do your subtraction, you get 94/40ths. And then you can change this into a mixed number. 40/40ths would be 1 whole. 80/40ths would be 2 wholes. So I've got 2 wholes, and then 94 minus 80 gives me 14/40ths. And then I can simplify that by dividing by 2, and I would get 2 and 7/20ths. You could also do a variation of the butterfly method also. There are lots of ways to go about this, but the important thing for you to realize is you have to look at your fractions separately than your whole numbers. So if I go back to this, you have to look at your fractions separately. You have to look at what this is actually 1/10 minus 6/8. And you have to deal with that by borrowing. It would be the same as taking, 51 minus 48. You can't subtract 8 from 1, so you have to borrow. This is the same concept. So hopefully this helps get you started on your homework assignment and helps you to review adding and subtracting mixed numbers.